Welcome to another episode of the brand called You, a video and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Today, I'm privileged to have a very senior corporate professional, Mr. Ajay Kumar Pandey, with me. Ajay, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh, for having me.
Thank you. Ajay is an independent director, a former CEO, and a transformational leader. He has served on the board of NELCO as an independent director. He is focused on ICT, power, energy, and infrastructure. And he has been the past chairman of FICCI's Urban Infrastructure and Smart Cities Committee. Ajay, tell me, what would you say are three key milestones in your career or your life?
It's always a tricky one to pull out three important milestones out of 3.5 decades plus of career. But I think if I look back, entry into the telecommunication sector when it was just getting privatized. In fact, I was one of the early birds, mid-90s. And just after the licensing Raj was getting over and things were beginning to get privatized. So telecom was something where I moved in. This is goes back to 96. And I think rest, as they say, is the history. And I was very fortunate that I got to work with one of the respected names of Indian business, that is the Tata Group, which is now a global business, so to speak.
Correct.
And so it's been, both in India and overseas in telecoms with the Tata Group. I think that has been a fantastic milestone. So that's one very clearly, I would say. The second one, Ashutosh, which rings a bell straight away is around 2005, I was called by the group headquarters at Tata Group, and I was the chosen one to be sent to the shores of South Africa. And from a mere laptop in my bag, and I was asked to set up a telecoms company there because Mr. Ratan Tata was on the advisory council of the Economic Advisory Council of the President of South Africa, and after the apartheid era,
Correct.
it was part of the reconstruction process, and telecommunications costs were very high. So Mr. Tata had offered a helping hand, and I was the nominated managing director and the CEO to go and start that company. So, which in a way gave me a different perspective, gave me a chance to meet up with the likes of Honorable Nelson Mandela. A lot of other people and multiple shareholders and so on and so forth, and so I served there for about 6 years. So that I think was the second important milestone in my career, which added that change. And the third one is pretty recent. In 2015, I was asked to be the managing director and CEO of Prime Minister's one of its pet projects called Gift City, Gujarat. So, and I had never thought that I'll get a chance to work with, the powers to be, and virtually do something transformational. So, I think the common thread out of all of these three milestones, if you will, in that sense, Ashutosh, is that I was fortunate, and I must thank God. I must thank everyone in the professional world that I got a chance to be part of transformational things when they were non-existent, so they were just about coming up, and I was able to put in my hand and contribute my brick into that building that got created. So I think these three very distinctly stand out in my journey so far.
So let's talk about your third milestone, which is Gift City. Which is what you would refer to as an award-winning model smart city in Gujarat.
Right.
Tell me about this venture.
So this is Prime Minister Modi used to travel overseas when he was chief minister, and he would always say that these are financial centers, and he would always be surprised to see that in each of these centers, that is London, Hong Kong, Shanghai, and other places, New York, financial activities pertaining to India was happening in those centers.
Okay.
And amazingly, they were all people of Indian origin. And he would always wonder, why can't these people be back in India? So there were two reasons which were identified. One was the regulation, which is to, the business, or rather the money flows on its easiest path, as they say. So regulations needed to be kind of cleaned up. And thereafter, right input was given that a lot of these people from Indian origin prefer to stay overseas because of quality of life and infrastructure and so on and so forth. So I think he took it upon himself to come up with this, grand idea of creating what is called in Gujarat International Finance Tech City. And whatever he does, he feels that it should be a model. And the smart city movement in India had three different types of smart city, and we were listed there as a model city. And we were listed there as a model city for the reason because it's not only about infrastructure. First and foremost, Gift City has some phenomenal infrastructure. It has no air conditioners. It has what is called city-wise district coolings. So there are no individual air conditioners. There are no garbage vans in the city because the garbage moves through the chutes and ducts and travels
Oh, wow.
at a sort of a high speed. The entire city has 19 or 20 or I don't know, whatever that number is today. The set of utilities are underground. So you would not find boards which will say, there's a digging going on or whatever you will in that sense. So these are all multiple utilities passing through underground tunnel. The smart cities, smart lights, and all of that is pretty much there. So these are as I call it, the hardware of the city.
Wow.
And the software of the city it is India's first international financial services city, which is in the news these days. And I think, why is it that people have to go to Singapore or Mauritius or, different other parts of the world? Why can't we have the regulations and do some of these activities smartly in India? So it's a good combination of hardware and software, as I call it. And it has a character of the city, and which is what the Gift City is all about, Ashutosh.
Amazing. So, there has been a lot of talk of smart cities ever since Prime Minister Modi came. Does it mean the smart cities that are now going to be built would work towards getting this kind of infrastructure? I mean, this is completely unheard of in India. What you're explaining about Gift City?
Yeah, so we can have a hour-long conversation on the smart city subject itself, but within that domain, there is a component called greenfield smart city, and this one is a good example of a greenfield smart city. There are two other types of smart city. One is a redevelopment, and other is, of course, readaptation of certain areas. So. I think it requires money, but there are people who are beginning to do a copy paste of this model. And I'm aware of few of those which are coming up in India. So I think it's a great beginning that has been made. It is a good example to prove it to the world as well as to India and the Indian citizens that this can be done. It has been done and it is successful. So let's hope for the best. That's all I would say.
So, when I was reading about you and Gift City, I was fascinated to see that, there are 150 plus companies, there are 10,000 professionals. What goes into managing such a large enterprise?
So I think I've always, as I said, I've been fortunate enough to have that service orientation. And irrespective of the shape and size of the team, if you have built in that culture of service orientation, I think it goes a long way, Ashutosh. The second or third thing is that, as I said, while I was fortunate, but I also bring in an element of a passion in terms of what is to be delivered, and hence I find a credo or some kind of a tagline for anything and everything I do. So when I was in South Africa, for example, doing that work, I ended up saying to my team members that you are here to change the history. You are here to change the cost of doing business in the African continent. And come to think of it, you will have umpteen stories to narrate to your grandchild. And so was the case in Gift City. I would always tell our people that it's not about building another building or another kilometer of road. You are part of history in the making. As in when the history would be written, you would be very proud of the fact that your name would exist. So I think the element of passion to bring in together, and on a practical leadership style, it is also about the fact that you empower people, to deliver what they want to deliver. And I have this fundamental philosophy, Ashutosh, that no one gets up in the morning and goes out of his or her home to fail. Everybody wants to succeed. Nobody wants to fail. Human beings are excellent
Correct.
examples. And, in fact, very early in my career, I came across a definition of empowerment, which is to say permission to fail.
Mhm.
So if you tell people that, go ahead and do the job, and as long as it is making a difference, as long as it is making things better, you have the empowerment to, go ahead and take the decisions and do it. So such a large enterprise can never work if you do not have a good team.
Correct.
And it's not only about good team, they should have clarity of purpose as well as the right empowerment to hit the right buttons, Ashutosh.
Amazing. Amazing. So, Ajay, you've led, so many companies in so many different countries across multiple businesses. What are some of the core values you personally believe in?
I think it's I have to, without fail, say that, personal discipline is expected from people in these kind of positions. But I think the ethics and integrity probably bring in that much more clarity. You don't have to, because that is what also brings in what I call it as authenticity as far as leadership is concerned. And I strongly believe that these days, particularly youngsters, particularly the environment around us, with so much of information being available, people are able to see through you if you're not authentic. So I think those are common thread of the value system that one kind of carries.
Okay.
It gels in very well as far as the discipline part is concerned, and I think a part of it is also because of the fact that I've had a 14 to 15-year association with groups like, Tata Group, Godrej Group. I work with some of the multinationals and overseas and US and South Africa. So, yeah, that's what, brings in that kind of clarity, and that's what one is able to carry forward in the leadership story.
Very interesting. And what would you say is your leadership style?
My personal style is, there's a bit of push and bit of pull, which is subject when I initiate a discussion upon. A lot of people get caught up in the nuances, but I make it very simple. There are times, when you have to push the team. There are times when you are achieving a larger purpose, you have to get everybody around you, and which is in my way what is called pull, and sharing a common sort of vision. So 1/3 push and 2/3 pull is the mantra that I follow.
Okay.
The more people are involved, the more people are able to rally around you, the more people are able to kind of relate to what you're saying. And I'm not getting into the hygiene factors, Ashutosh, about that a leader has to be a good storyteller or a good, communicator and so on and so forth. Because at the end of the day, it is finally, the way people are able to relate to it and the way you are able to sort of pull everybody together. So it is 2/3 pull, 1/3 push is the mantra I have followed. And I have no reasons to believe at this stage that I should change that thought process.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So one more question for you before I move to the next segment. And this is, you have worked with people over the last 3.5 decades, as you said. Today, the age belongs to the millennials and the Gen Zs. What has been your experience of working with millennials and Gen Zs as compared to the generations before them?
Oh, I think even now, I am, as I said, I'm fortunate because I'm fairly well entrenched in the startup ecosystem. For last 6-7 years, I have been an angel investor, and I have a portfolio of companies, and I interact with them quite a lot. And these are all, jeans and t-shirt guys,
Correct.
If you will, in that sense. And there's a reason why I chose to be part of that. A, they keep you alive.
Correct.
B, they keep you engaged with newer innovation and newer ways of doing things, be it technology, be it whichever way you want to call it. C, I think they also keep you on your toes. They don't take anything on face value, which in some sense forces you to do your homework well. So if you have to talk to them, if you have to sit on the table with a technology discussion, you can't just be, sitting and looking at the wall. You have to be prepared yourself. So my experience with this group of people is that they actually bring in a lot of life, a lot of substance onto the table. And in the same vein, I think they also challenge your thoughts. So you should be ready to be challenged. Unlike I'm not saying that the past style was not bad. I think it's the question of adapting to the newer world.
Yeah.
But these millennials, I think, very rightly so, because of the information overload, or whichever way you want to call it. You have to be crisp, clear, quick, and be a sort of good sport, if you will, in that sense, to be with them on the table.
Well said. So let's talk a little bit about now your role as an independent director. You're on the board of several companies, and in the last few years, the fiduciary responsibility of an independent director is the same as an executive director. My question to you is, what do you look for before you accept a board position?
So one thing is, I think, every individual person has their own checklist of what you look for. My checklist is very simple. I think there has to be some homework about what the company is, who are the people involved in it. And more importantly, I look for, what could be the board dynamics based on the people who are present there. It should not become an over-dominated story by one individual or two individuals. There should be a place for robust discussion that may sort of happen. There has also to be, some bit of, should I use the word, track record of making sure. I'm not talking only of performance. I'm talking about some of the compliances, etc. Because today the world is transparent. I mean, even before you say Rip Van Winkle, you know about a company, you go onto the web, you know what is happening, what is not happening. So there should be no visible red flags. I'm using the word visible with fair amount of caution. There should be no visible red flags. But I think as long as the processes are there, there is a good platform for discussion. And I think it's a that's what I normally look for. Normally I would look for. And of course, a word or two of recommendations from somebody, because nobody knows it better than the people who have done it already, or who have been associated with them. So I think those are some of the individual points that I look for.
Okay. And a follow-up question to that, Ajay, would be that, there have been some horror stories over the last 10 years in some boardrooms with independent directors. As an independent director, what is your view on the level of transparency that is needed in boardrooms?
So the best part is that I think a lot depends on the management team itself as to what is it that they want to talk about. Because see, board members are not running the day-to-day affairs of the company.
Correct.
And I have been on both sides of the table, and many a time when I've been MD and CEO for 15, 20 years. So many a times before my board meeting, I used to wonder, is this good enough for me to, be placed onto the board? Because board will not know if I don't even place it. Many a time some of those details are not there. So is it going to be a classical case of, am I giving them a stick to beat me? And so I think if you're on the other side of the table, you appreciate that the person across the table has been through the same feeling and flair. I have worked with a very simple philosophy, and my philosophy is that if you are in doubt, disclose.
Okay.
Right? In other words, should I not? I would say err on the side of caution. And disclose. It's good both for the management team. It's good both for anyone and everyone. And at least one would not be blamed for not placing it on the table. I think that's the way I sort of look for.
Okay.
So if you apply that theory as far as the independent director's situation and what you referred to in the corporate world in the recent time has come through, I would say, in some or other sense, wherever you have seen the issues that have happened, I think the management team, or whichever way you want to call it, even if they were in doubt, they chose not to disclose. And that's why we are where we are, I would probably say. Also, some process failures may have happened. I personally believe that none of these things happen on an overnight basis. It's a result of few weeks, few months, few quarters, all of that. So there are ample opportunities for somebody to make the right disclosure. So that's my sort of read of the situation.
Very, very interesting. Thank you. So, let's move to the last segment of our conversation, which are some questions for you personally. Ajay, so much success all over the world, led large companies. What does success mean to Ajay?
Uh, I would say that my personal definition has been that if I have been able to make a difference in terms of whatever I have done,
Mm-hmm.
and even after I have left that place, if people still remember me, both in the organization as well as in the business circles or associates where I was, for a legacy that I have left behind, and I still sort of am in touch with them with fairly positive sort of bend of mind,
Mm-hmm.
I think I have done my job because I was sent there for a purpose or I was deputed for a purpose. Been there, done that, but not only done that, it's also I'm cherishing that and I love to talk about it in any and every forum or, go back to those people. So I think it is that personal satisfaction or that enrichment, which is very, very close to my heart. And that's what to me success is all about.
Amazing. And therefore, a follow-up question to that is that what or who keeps inspiring you to keep on pushing the envelope, to keep doing more and more?
So I think at different stages of life, you get impressed by different individuals, and I am of the belief that when I started my career, there were people who I still remember a favorite. There was a boss of mine who always said, if you have decided to be part of this rat race, make sure you are the best rat in the town. Or else you leave the space. This is a competitive world. You have to be running at your best. And likewise, I can count at every stage people have added their deltas, so to speak, so that the end sigma is that much more interesting and better.
Correct.
But I think what keeps me going is the fact that I try and read wherever I can. I try and interact with people. I love talking to people. I love having conversation. I love keeping myself abreast of what is happening in and around me. I think it's a combination of all of these things, Ashutosh, which probably
Wonderful.
it keeps me going.
Wonderful. So I have time for two more questions for you.
Please.
My next question is on failure. I have a new book coming out in March on failure. And it's been my hypothesis that in India, particularly, maybe Asia in general, Indian parents don't tell children it's okay to fail. And that manifests itself in our behavior patterns.
Right.
Yet we fail. My question to you, Ajay, is what have been your learnings from some of your mistakes or failures?
So failures, I think it has been. I wouldn't say failure as a result of something. I think I've, like any other professional would have, I've had situations when there have been some error of judgments, and one of the learnings is that in the initial stages, I'm talking about let's say 20 years ago or 15 years ago. There were times when I should have given more thought to what is happening, and I tended to, out of the 9 or 10 things, I tended to take 1 or 2 for granted without validating them. And I think that bounced back on me in some sense. So one of the key learnings was that if it is an important thing, that come what may, you cannot have a 80% tick rate and 20% drop off. So I think you should also cover the 20%, so to speak. And that has happened, once or twice, and after that, that has been a good learning. And the second thing, which in fact I love to interact with people a lot on the organizational side, I would say, is which is sort of firming up my belief of what is empowerment, what is how much of leverage you can give, how much of pull thing you should do that I spoke about. And also, I think I did mention to you earlier about this permission to fail.
Correct.
And that's how you begin to do it. So I think some of these have been some good learnings as far as I'm concerned about the teams that I work with.
Fantastic. And I'm going to ask you this one more question, even though I know we've run out of time. But as such a successful professional, our conversation will be watched by thousands and thousands of young individuals. What would your advice be to a young individual starting off on their journey in the corporate world?
Just be yourself and believe in what you are, what you aspire for. If you have the right passion and the right hard work and stay focused, I think results do come. There may be hiccups, but I think at the end of the day, if you just follow these 2-3 things, I know it's a cliche, but be that as it may, this is how I would sort of advise the younger lots to come through.
That's incredible advice. Ajay, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you, and I wish you lots of success in whatever you're doing.
Thanks, Ashutosh. It was a pleasure for me as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.